So as I was explaining, basically we have three views into Power BI. One is the report view, then there is this table view. Now, if you see the table view, the tables are actually visible in this particular view. Okay, if you look at this, these are the various tables that are there in this Power BI file or PBIX file. And thirdly, we have this model view where you have the information about the different tables. And if there are any connection between the tables, those will be visible as well. Okay. Right now, you don't worry about the connection between the tables. We'll be dealing with the data modeling aspect in very much detail. But you just remember that the report view is the one where we actually create the visualizations. The table view is the one where we actually view the tables like this. And the third view, that is the data model view, is where we actually see the connection between the three tables. I mean, between all the tables. Yeah, so this is about the general graphical user interface of Power BI. Okay, and it has various tabs, the file tab, the home tab. Okay, various tabs are there, and we'll discuss each one of them in very much detail. Okay, so just a second. Before going into getting the data into Power BI, first let's discuss about how the work happens in any BI tool for that instance, not just Power BI. Okay, so first of all, what we do is we connect to different data sources. Basically, we bring the data from different sources into Power BI. Okay, and then we transform the data in Power BI. And to do that, we use the in-house ETL tool of Power BI that is called as Power Query Editor. Okay, and once the data within Power BI is cleaned and transformed and brought into the required form, then we go on to model the data. And when I say model the data, what I mean is we establish the relationship between the different tables to create the star schema or snowflake schema or maybe the galaxy schema based on our requirement. Okay, so this is actually the thing which is called as modeling the data. Then once the modeling is done, we actually look into the requirements in terms of what all calculations or analysis that we need to create these visualizations. And to create these visualizations, sometimes we might not need this as well, but in most of the cases, we do need some calculated columns and measures. That is, by using the existing columns, we create new columns sometimes, and by using some existing columns, we create some new measures. Now, what's the difference between the calculated columns and measures? We'll discuss in detail while dealing with the DAX. Okay, but yeah, do remember that we do create the calculations. Once the calculations and analysis is done, we ultimately create the reports and visualizations. Basically, we create the visualizations. Okay. And once the report is ready, we ultimately publish the report in the Power BI service. We publish, share, and collaborate our report with the other people from our organization or the business end of our organization by publishing it into Power BI service. Okay. And yeah, sometimes some other things might be involved here. Like, let's say, once you create the report, you might have to share it with the QA people who will give you the feedback whether your report is completely valid or not. And based on his or her feedback, you have to rework on your report and you need to remove the bugs from your report. Okay. And then you need to publish it again and share and collaborate. Okay. So this is the general workflow that occurs in, while working in any BI tool or even in Power BI. Okay. So is this thing completely clear? Any doubts with respect to this, people?
So in the beginning, there is a diagram you mentioned, like data will be cleaned using some ETL tools.
Yes.
In this
Yeah.
case, do that in this whole ETL thing will be done from our end?
About that. See, the thing is that generally what happened, there are certain dedicated ETL tools. There are certain dedicated ETL tools like we have Informatica, okay, and we have some Azure Data Factory related tools, okay. So generally what happens is that in any big project, or usually in any project in any organization, the ETL is completely handled by the data engineers who dedicatedly work on those tools. Okay. But nonetheless, we can also use the ETL tool that is present within Power BI to do the ETL stuff as well. Okay. So sometimes what happens is that some of the ETL might have been already done by the data engineers, but based upon your requirement, you might have to do some more cleaning of data or some more profiling of the data that can be possible within Power BI as well. Hope I answered your question.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That thing also will be covered using this course, right?
Yeah, the ETL definitely will be covered. Okay. Because I know, although in most of the projects, they usually don't want you to do the ETL within the Power BI, but yeah, we will study it in complete detail nonetheless. Okay. So is the workflow clear with everyone?
Yeah.
Great. So let's so now let's start with the basics. Let's start with bringing some data actually into the Power BI. Okay. And to bring the data into Power BI, first, let me close this particular file and let's start afresh. Okay. So this is the new instance of Power BI, which doesn't have any data into this. Okay. And the way to bring the data into Power BI is you need to be in the Home tab. Okay. And you need to click on the Get Data. Okay. You can either click on this drop down, select among these options, or you can click on More if you think that the option that you're looking for is not existing here. Now, if you look into the options that are actually available, they're almost more than 100. Okay. Hundreds of options are there. I mean, direct connections to these different data sources is existing in Power BI. Okay. And you can bring the data from the things like maybe it might be Excel worksheet. It might be some CSV or flat file. It might be from some Access database. It might be some SQL Server database. Okay. So generally what happens in organizations, in most of the projects, they get the data from certain database because, as you know, it's not just the BI developer who is working in a BI project, but it's some DBMS people and it's some ETL people also who are working. And when this is the case, generally they prefer certain database to bring the all data into. Okay, so we'll look into how to bring the data from different sources. Okay, so first what we'll do, we'll try to bring the data from certain Excel workbooks, CSV flat files, and I'll also show you how to connect to the data from SQL Server and also something like MySQL Server database as well. Okay, so first of all, what I'll do is I'll try to connect to some Excel workbook data. So what you need to do is you need to click on Get Data, select Excel workbook. Okay, and then you need to click on the data that you want to bring into here. Okay, and yeah, so let's say, and these are, if you see, these are Excel workbooks. Okay, and if I want to bring this, let's say if I want to bring sample superstore data, I'll click on that and I'll click on Open. Okay, and once that happens, you will be taken to a new window. Yeah, and here you can click on each of these tables to just have a preview of these tables. Okay, and once you click on each of these, okay, the thing is you will be asked, I mean, here you'll be having two options. One is either to load it directly or to transform the data. Now, just by looking at this data, okay, if you'll just have a look at this, maybe this one, or maybe this one, okay, or maybe the third table. Now, especially once it comes to the third table, do you think this table is completely correct, or there's some change that needs to be done in this case? Yes?
Yeah, there is no relation.
There is no relation? I mean, what do you exactly mean by that? I mean, all I'm asking is, what's the problem with this particular table?
Column names?
Yeah, the column headers are supposed to be the first row values, isn't it? These are basically nothing but regions: central, east, south, and west. And these are nothing but the manager names, and region and manager are supposed to be the column headers. Okay. And if you see, there are certain transformations that need to be done in this kind of data, then you need to click on transform data. Okay, like this. And if you click on transform data, you will be taken to the ETL tool of Power BI that is called as Power Query Editor. A new window will open. Can you see this? This window is completely a new window. Okay, that will open once you click on transform data. Okay, you can transform the data here. Right now, we'll not go in detail into ETL, but right now our main concern is how to bring the data from different sources. But I'm just telling you what happens if you click on transform. Now let's see what happens if we click on load directly. Okay, so I'll just discard the changes. I'll bring that data once again, and I'll bring the sample superstore once again. And if I click on these tables, and if I click on load, then those tables will directly be loaded into Power BI desktop, and you will not be taken to Power Query Editor. Okay, it's loading, just wait a bit. Yeah. Hope this thing is clear. Now you see all the three tables have been loaded. And if you actually want to have a look at these tables, you can go to the data view or table view basically. Okay, just wait a bit, it will be loaded. Yeah. Okay, so this is what happens when you click on load or transform. Okay, and this is how you bring the data from the CSV file, Excel workbook. Okay, let's say if you want to bring the data from CSV source, again, you need to click on get data. Then you need to click on text bar CSV. I hope you can see this. This is text bar CSV. You need to click on that. And now you see we have a CSV file in this, which is called orders_CSV. If I click on that and I click on open, now again, what will happen? You will be given a preview of the data here. And based on whether you want to transform or load it, you have to click on either load or transform. Let's say if I want to load it directly into the Power BI desktop, then I'll just click on load. Okay. Yeah, there is some error with the queries. Those errors can be resolved using Power Query Editor. But as I said, we'll look into Power Query Editor later once we discuss the ETL from Power BI. Right now, our focus is on getting the data from different sources. Okay, so this is about Excel workbook and flat or CSV file. Now let's just have a look at how to bring the data from the SQL server. Okay. Now, first of all,
One very quick question. So does it actually bring data physically into Power BI server? Meaning, like if you delete the original source of Excel file, do we still see the data here?
See, actually, I wanted to talk about that in next class because there are different storage modes in Power BI. One is the import mode, and in import mode, as you said, the data is actually brought into Power BI. Means the tables here, they are actually in Power BI. Okay, and until and unless you click the refresh button, no matter what happens in the backend, this thing will not be changed. Hope you got the answer.
Yeah, got that.
But yeah, please.
Yeah, sir, one quick question. I mean, the concept of transform data is not much clear to me. The load part I understand, but the transform data part, it's not much clear to me.
Now let's say, see, by transform, what I mean is, if you want to clean the data, you need to click on transform. And don't worry about the transform part right now. We'll be dealing that in very much detail. We'll be looking into how to transform the data, how to clean the raw data. Okay. So by transform, what I mean is the profiling of data or cleaning of data, or basically making the data uniform by, let's say, doing the things like removing the unwanted rows, unwanted columns, removing the blank values, things like that.
Okay, in total, we are editing the data by transforming it, right?
Yes,
we can edit the data.
We can, yes, we can say editing, but that's generally not the term that they use. They call it profiling or transforming the data. Yeah, but yeah, the meaning is same. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pawan, one more thing I just want to know, like whenever we are trying to get data, right? Suppose that we have 10 million data and I'm just trying to, get evolved in sales data, and there is some null value, blank value. So I cannot see with my eyes, right? So is there any way that we can check before getting data? Like we need to modify it? Maybe.
See, actually, all these questions will be answered while we actually transform the data, because there I'll actually tell you how to check what kind of data each and every column has. There is a thing called as profile viewing of the columns. There you will see how many blanks are there. If there are any errors, all the information you will be able to get. Okay, but actually we are talking ahead of time right now.
Yeah, I mean, in generally, we need to clean the data first and then we go ahead and do that.
Yes, but yeah, I know I mean, we'll clean the data. Don't worry about that. But right now, I'm just discussing on how to bring the data from different sources first. Okay.
Yeah, I've got it.
So I hope bringing the data from Excel and CSV is clear with everyone.
We can bring multiple reports.
You can come again. You can bring
multiple reports.
Multiple tables, you mean, or multiple sheets?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, definitely. You can bring any number of tables as you want in here. There's no limitation to that. Okay.
Okay. And if I am working with Excel, all the data I would be bringing would be from Excel, or I can work with Excel, CSV simultaneously.
You can work with I mean, you can bring certain tables from Excel. You can bring certain tables from CSV as well. There's no sort of problem with that. Okay. Fine. Now let's try bringing the data from some different sources, like, because even though we talk about Excel and CSV files, what generally happens in the organizations is that they usually tend to bring the data from databases like SQL Server, like Synapse Data Lake, like MySQL Server, and sometimes they might use certain database like, let's say, Snowflake. Okay, so let's try to look at how to bring the data from different databases. Okay, so first of all, the thing is, in order to accomplish this in your systems, you should have SQL Server. And in case you want to bring the data from MySQL, then you have to install MySQL as well. Because if you don't have those databases installed in your system, you cannot bring the data from them. As simple as that. So what I'll do is first I'll open the details of MySQL Server details. Okay. So yeah, just a second. Yeah, that's fine. Then. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to know your SQL Server name. And SQL Server name is this. Once you open your SQL, that is SSMS. I hope you are aware of SSMS, right?
Yes.
SQL Server Management Studio. It comes as a package of SQL Server. Okay. So if you have not installed that, please install that in your system. Okay. And yeah, this basically what you're seeing is your server name. And why that is required, let me show you. Let's say you want to get the data from SQL Server. You need to again click at Get Data. Then you need to click on SQL Server. Okay. And then here you need to actually type the name of your server. Okay. So I have stored the name of my server in here. Let me get that. Okay. So Control C, Control V. And if you want to bring a particular database, you can type that name as well. So what I want to do is I want to bring a particular database, which is called AdventureWorks 2019. So I'll copy that as well. I'll copy its name here. And yeah, there are two modes to bring the data into Power BI. One is import mode, another is direct query mode. There's one more mode, live connection, but we'll deal with these storage modes later. Okay. So right now, if you do this and if you click on OK, let me show you what happens. And yeah, SQL Server should be running. Okay. It should be in running condition. Else, again, you will not get the data. Okay. Now you see in that particular AdventureWorks database, which I typed there, these many tables are there. Okay, so all these tables are there. And let me say, if I want to bring some particular tables, I need to click on those tables. Let's say if I want to bring sales order detail, then I'll click on that. Okay, and I'll simply, again, I have to click basically load or transform based on whatever I want. Let's say if I just want to click load. Okay, so now if you see, this table is also here. Okay, and this table basically is a sales table which has details with respect to the sales. Okay, so this is about SQL. And now one more interesting thing, let me show you. Let's say, and I hope you people are aware about writing SQL queries. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say if you want to filter the data which is coming into Power BI from SQL Server, then what you can do, you can write the query while bringing the data into Power BI. Let me show you how that is done. Again, I'll click on Home. I'll click on Get Data, and I'll click on again SQL Server. And then let's say I want to bring the data again from this particular server. And then again, this database. And now, let's say, now if you see here, what I just want to do is, here you're seeing the order quantity column, right? Is it visible?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I want to do is, I want to bring the records where the order quantity is greater than or equal to 5. Hope the requirement is clear.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so how to do that? Okay, so what you need to do is you need to click on advanced options. Okay, and here you can see you can actually write the SQL query. So let's start writing a simple SQL query. I'll just write a simple select statement, nothing else. Select star. I want to basically bring all the columns from the table name is sales order detail. And I'll simply put a simple where condition where the name of the column is, I think, order QTY. Order QTY is greater than or equal to 5. That's it. And if I click on OK now, let me show you what happens. Now, if you see, okay, yeah, I'll load this one, okay, I'll just simply load this one. And yeah, now if you see, it is named as query 1. Okay. Now if you see here, the order quantity is actually greater than or equal to 5. Is that clear?
Yes.
So basically, I have filtered the data before bringing it into Power BI. Okay. And that can be done by writing SQL query even here as well. I mean, while bringing the data. But generally, what they do, let's say you have, let's say you have SQL in the backend. Sometimes what people do is they make a new view. Okay, they make a new view, store that view, and bring that view directly into the Power BI. Hope you're getting the point, what I'm trying to say. Yes or no?
Yes, Pawan, yeah.
Okay, so at the backend, they write that query and make a new view, and that view they directly bring into Power BI. That way also it works. But nonetheless, if you want to write the query here itself, you can do even that. Okay. So this is the way data is brought from the SQL server. Okay. And yeah, let me show you one more thing that is from the MySQL workbench. Let me check whether it's running or not. Yeah, it's running status. So let me bring something from MySQL now. So I'll go to get data, and again, I'll check for MySQL. It's not available here. I'll click on more, and we'll look for MySQL. If you're not able to find it, you can directly search it here as well by typing it. Yeah, so it's here. So you click on MySQL database, click on connect. Okay, and you need to type the name of your server. Okay, and generally what happens, your MySQL server name that also will appear at the before opening the MySQL. Once you open the MySQL, before opening there'll be a window. Okay, and this basically what you're seeing here. I mean that window there, you will have the server name. Okay, in my case, I have stored the server name, that is this one. Okay, but in your case, you will be greeted with that server name at the instance when you open the MySQL server. Okay, I'll just copy this here. So this is MySQL server, and then the database that I want to bring is it's called simply sales database. Okay, and I'll simply click on OK. Okay, now if you see it's connected to MySQL server, you can bring the tables that you want to bring from here. Okay, and you can simply load or transform. Okay, you can simply load or transform. And one more thing, even while bringing the data from MySQL, again, you have the option to write the SQL query there as well. Okay, if you just have a look at the advanced options, here again, you can write the SQL query. Okay, and this holds good not just for SQL Server and MySQL, it holds good even for other databases like Snowflake, like Oracle DB, and like for different databases. Okay, so this is how you bring the data from different databases. Is this thing clear with everyone?
Before we load this data, we have to have an understanding of the data, or we have to view it through the database, and then we have to write the query.
See, to write the query, you definitely need to understand the tables, right? Because without knowing actually what the table actually looks like and what columns you want to bring in, how can you write the query, right?
Okay. So we need to look into the data, and then we need to...
Exactly. See, what kind of data you are bringing into Power BI, that solely depends on the requirement of the project. Okay, what all tables that you want to bring, what all columns that you want to bring, or basically what all joins you need to make. You can even write the queries involving joins also here. Okay, and that also can be done. Okay, but yeah, as you said, you should be aware of the tables before you bring that into Power BI. Okay.
And all this data and install the SQL, all those things will be given as to, I mean, like to do the hands-on to practice.
Yeah, I have all the files, which I'll be sharing after each and every class. Yeah, and the thing is, this SQL, I mean, the connection to SQL, connection to MySQL, I'm showing just, showing just for you to know how to connect with that. But rest, to understand rest of the Power Query editing options, you need not bring the data from SQL Server always. We can work on Excel files as well. Okay, but the main thing is, in this class, you should understand how to bring the data from different sources. That's the main intention of this particular class.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, once the class is done, I'll share all these SQL as well as the MySQL files, and as well as Excel and CSV files for you to practice bringing the data from different sources by yourself. Okay. So that's for sure. Yeah. So any doubts till now? Any other doubts, people?
Yeah, Pawan, one doubt. So regarding the views, that is whose responsibility is to create the views? Is the DB team or it's a Power BI team who owns that responsibility?
Yeah. See, I'll tell you the exact thing that happens. Okay. So let me just open the Excel. Okay. So there definitely will be a DB team. Okay. And the responsibility of the DB team is to maintain the data warehouse or to maintain all the tables in your data warehouse. Okay. And the way in which the data is arranged, they should be uniform. The data type should be established. The sole responsibility lies with the DB team. Okay. Then comes the ETL team, and ETL team, or maybe they might be data engineers team. And usually what happens is they will give you the data from the DB to your Power BI. But sometimes you have to, the DB team will inform you what are the different tables from which you can get the data, but you have to write the query by yourself in order to create the views that you want. Okay. And yeah, this also happens. So that's the reason I told you yesterday that you should be good in writing SQL queries, at least the basic things like how to create the joins. Okay. Those things you should be very clear upon. Okay.
Yeah, got it. And sorry, just one more thing. Basically, the DB connection, right? So let's assume we are connecting to entirely new DB. So there is no connectivity with the Power BI at all. So how can I ensure that I have the access to that particular host where DB installed, and what all things I need to take care to get the successful connection?
Can you rephrase your, in new
So,
organization, how do you know where to connect? That's what you're asking?
no, I mean to say there's a new DB. So I got a new requirement, and where I need to connect to a new database. So there's no connectivity between Power BI and that database. So what things I see, firewall things, or how I will ensure that I can connect to the DB successfully?
See, first of all, whenever you're into any new project, okay, they will give you the server name and the database and also the connections with the Power BI. Okay. And as you said, if there is no direct connection between the completely new DB which you're talking about and Power BI, then you will introduce some layers in between. Like, let's say, for example, you are dealing with, let's say, some transaction system. Okay. And that transaction system does not have direct connection with Power BI. In that case, what people do, what DB team or what ETL team or what data engineers do is get that data from that transaction system into some DB which has connection with Power BI. Let's say, for example, SQL or Synapse Data Lake or maybe Snowflake. Then from that you connect it to Power BI. Is that clear?
Yes, Pawan, yeah.
And yeah, whenever there's a new project that is going on, and if let's say you are supposed to connect to any DB, you will definitely be given the access to that database, the server name, and basically the database name or the tables that you want to bring. That information they'll definitely give you. Okay, so that is always there.
Understood, yeah.
So yeah, so this is about connecting to the data from CSV, Excel, then SQL Server, then MySQL. And let's say in some rare cases, if you want to connect data data from some websites, okay? And let's say that website is free to access so that you can get the tables from that website. Then you can you can get the data from that particular website as well. So what you need to do is you need to go to get data and you need to click on web, okay? And I'll just that is it. The website, for example, this particular website. So I can simply click its URL here. I'll click on OK. It will take a bit of time because it needs to access the tables which are exactly there in that particular website.
Pawan, REST API and websites both are same, or
No, the REST APIs are typical different connections again. Okay, and if there are any REST API connections, they will give you the information about those connections, and you can again use those. Okay, but yeah,
okay.
connection to direct web and REST API is different. Okay,
But possible, right? APIs
REST
also can
API
be.
is definitely possible. Yes.
Okay.
It's taking a bit of time. Check my connection. Connection is fine because yeah, obviously we are in the Zoom class. Yeah. Yeah, finally. But this is taking unusually more time. Generally, it doesn't take this much, but yeah. Not sure that this is happening. So basically what happens is that once you connect to a website, even from the website also, the tables which are having the open access, they will be visible here. And you can click on those tables and you can again either load or transform the data. Hope that is clear, people.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is the way in which you can bring the data from different sources. Now, the thing about this is, if you just have a look at this, the different connection to different databases is almost similar. Let me show you. For example, if you click on something like the Oracle database, okay, again, it will give you the similar option like, yeah, it's not installed, but if it's installed, again, it will ask you to enter the server name and database name. Now, can you see this? The server name, and again, you can write the query as well here. Okay. So connection to most of the databases are similar in Power BI. Okay. And all you need is the server information and the database information. And you should be knowing how to write the SQL queries. Okay. So this is about the bringing of the data. Any doubts with respect to this, people?
Pawan, I have a question, right? Like whenever we are trying to transform the data, like clean the data in Power BI, right? So what is the sense to put SQL query before getting the data? Like at the end, we need to transform that, right?
See, I'm just telling you the options. Let's say your data is already cleaned in SQL. Okay. You need not, I mean, if let's say you need not clean it, you can write, I mean, directly write a query and you can bring the required data. Okay. So it's just that. But yeah, if
it's up to us, right? Like we need to write the query, or we can transform the data from Power BI as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you can, I mean, you can do the filtering in Power BI also. Okay. In Power Query Editor also, you can do the filtering. Like just a while ago, if you remember, I filtered that the quantity should be greater than equal. So that thing can be done even in Power Query Editor. Okay.
Okay. But, and what is the best way to do that? Like, what is the best
way to do that is trying to do everything in the back end, like we did here. So that's the best way. Okay. Trying to keep all the transformations in the backend is the best way to do the work in Power BI, because as you go on doing more transformations, the more, I mean, there'll be more added steps that will be involved in Power BI. Okay. So I mean, it is better that we keep those steps to minimum. Okay. Anyway, we'll deal with those steps in very much detail. Okay. But right now, you just I mean, I hope bringing the data from different sources is clear with everyone.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, and now we'll discuss yes, the different storage modes of Power BI. Okay, just a second. Yeah. Okay. So basically, there are, if you think about the generic ways, there are just two ways. One is import mode and there is direct query mode. Whereas this third mode, which is live connection mode, it is very much similar to the direct query mode. I'll tell you how this is different. Okay. So first of all, let's try to discuss the import mode. Okay. Now, what is meant by the import mode? When you bring the data into Power BI via import mode, it means that you're bringing the data actually into Power BI. Now, what I mean is these tables which I have brought in here, actually, I mean, I have brought it in import mode, and no matter what happens in the backend, it will not impact here until and unless I press the refresh button that is there here. Can you see the refresh button?
Yes.
You know what happens when I press the refresh button?
No.
See, basically, when we press the refresh button, all these tables will be refreshed. I mean, all those will be loaded once again. Loaded once again means loaded from the backend to here once again. Clear?
Yeah, got it.
Let's say, I'll just show you one example. Okay. For example, now let's say I brought the data from here. Okay. Orders underscore CSV. Now let's say I place it somewhere else. If I place it in ETL, this one. Okay. So now what I've done, I've changed its location. Agreed? Okay. Now, if I do its refresh, let's see what happens. See, can you see there is an error that we are getting for orders_CSV? What it says, it could not find the file because it knows the location where the file was. But right now the file is not in that location. And if this happens, what you need to do is you need to go to File, then Options and Settings, Data Source Settings. And for that particular file, you need to change the source. Click on that file here, go to Change Source, and you locate that file where you have stored it right now. That is in this one. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to do if you change the location. And then let's say, now if I again click on the refresh button or apply the changes, now if you see, it'll be loaded again. Yeah, there are certain errors which we'll deal with in Power Query Editor. Okay, but the main thing is, now you know what happens when the refresh button is pressed, right? All the tables will be loaded once again. Is that clear?
Pawan,
Yes.
can we do a selective refresh of certain
You can do
table?
the selective refresh as well. There's no problem in that. Okay, you can do the selective refresh as well. You just need to click on refresh data beside that particular table. Okay, can you see the 3 dots beside every table? If you select only that table and if you click on refresh data, that particular table will be refreshed. But the main aim is that in import mode, all these tables will be actually brought into Power BI. Meaning, until and unless you press the refresh button, this data will be there in Power BI itself. Okay, and it has no connection with whatever happens in the backend until and unless you press the refresh button. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. And one more thing, some people ask me the question, if I do some changes here, will the Excel file which is present in the backend, will that be affected? The answer is no. If you do any changes here, the backend will never be affected. Hope that is clear as well.
Yes.
Okay, so this is about import mode. Okay, this is about the import mode. Okay, and there is also one more thing called as direct query mode. Okay, let me show you how the things work in direct query mode. What happens in the direct query mode is when you connect to a file in direct query mode, although you can see that file here, but the fact is that the file is actually not brought into Power BI, but you just have established a connection between Power BI and backend. The file is actually lying in the backend. What you have here is just a connection to that file. Okay, so anything, I mean, if anything changes in the backend, even if you don't press the refresh button, that will be visible here. Are you understanding that?
Yes.
Okay, and let me show you how
Pawan, sorry, Pawan. Could
yes,
you please repeat one more time?
Okay, I'll just use the Excel sheet. Now let's say in the import mode, okay, you know, the file is actually brought into Power BI. Agree? You can see the tables, and until and unless you press the refresh button, that file will be there in Power BI unchanged. This is clear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if I talk about direct query mode, okay, here what happens is that the file is actually not in Power BI. Even though you bring it in Power BI, that file is actually not in Power BI, but there's just a connection to the backend. Let's say you have brought the file from SQL Server from direct query mode. That file is actually in SQL Server. What you are seeing in Power BI is just a view of it, and it just has a connection with the backend. And let's say if you, I mean, even if you don't press the refresh button here, if you change something in the backend, this will be changed. Is that clear?
Yes, Pawan.
Okay. Now let me show you how to bring the file from file in direct query mode. Okay, so let me open a new instance of Power BI Desktop. And the thing is very simple. All you need to do is let it open. Yeah, I'll try getting the data from SQL Server. Okay, and I'll use my server name and the database. And here, can you see? Apart from import, there is also one more thing. Can you see the direct query? You click on the direct query so that the file will be brought into the storage mode, that is direct query storage mode, not the import mode. Okay. And here, let me show you what happens now. There is immediately one change that you can see. Once the file is brought, let me select something. Let me select a particular file. Here. Sales order detail. Well, let me load it directly into Power BI. Okay. Yeah. Now, immediately, have you noticed something has changed in this Power BI, this particular PBIX file, compared to the earlier one? Do you guys see any change?
There is only, where is the window?
Yes.
I think there is only 2 tab at,
Yeah, there are only 2 tabs. One is report view and the other is the model view. There is no table view at all. This table, you cannot actually see like a table view if you are bringing that in direct query mode. Is that clear? Whereas here, if you click on, if you are in table view, you can see them in table views. Is this difference clear?
Yes.
Yes.
And important inherent difference is that in direct query, we are just establishing the connection, whereas in import mode, the file is actually being brought into Power BI. Okay. And one more important thing, direct query is applicable only for the databases, not for CSV or Excel files. This is very important to be noted. Okay. Direct query mode is applicable only for databases, not the CSV or Excel files. Okay. Now, you might ask me why there are these 2 modes. Why can't we use import mode always? Okay. So the answer to that is Power BI or Microsoft themselves, they suggest that if your data size is huge, okay, if your data size is huge, let's say your data has some table which has some 50 or 60 million rows, okay, and in that case, what happens is that if you use the import mode, your file size, it becomes bigger because in import mode, you are actually bringing that data into Power BI, and that will cause the memory related issues. It will become a slower file basically. Okay. And that's the reason Power BI actually, or Microsoft Power BI, they suggest using direct query mode if you are dealing with huge data. Okay. But in my experience, I've found that using import mode is always better compared to direct query. And I'll tell you the reasons. Okay. I'll tell you the reasons because I'll deal with these differences in detail tomorrow. Okay. But right now I'll just tell you what this basically difference is. Okay. And then comes this live connection. What's the live connection? Live connection is very much similar to direct query. Only difference is that in live connection, the data you are bringing into Power BI, it looks like the cube form of data. Have you heard about the cube form of data? Yes or no?
No.
No problem.
Okay, let me show you how it looks like. Okay, so let me open one OLAP. Yeah, this is one. Now, if you look at this cube, okay, there are basically three axes. Are you able to see the three axes? One is the time axis, one is the product axis, and third one is the measure axis. Now, let's say if I compare or if I consider this particular cube, it deals with one particular types of product. What is that? Accessories. Agree. And then let's say it gives you the information of one particular month, which is that 2015 January. Agree? Can you see that?
Yep.
I'm talking about this cube. And let's say in the measures or metrics, we have things like these set of cubes will give you the details about the sales. These cubes will give you the details about the order quantities. These cubes will give you about information about return quantities and so on. Then this cube basically is giving you the information about sales of accessories that happened when? In 2015 January. Is that clear?
Yes.
So is it clear what the cube form of data actually looks like? Okay, and let me just if you have 2 minutes of time, I can actually show that to you. I mean, not exactly the cube form, but how it looks like, because have you heard about the pivot tables in Excel?
Yeah.
So pivot tables actually look like the cube form of data. Okay. Just opening this sometime. And there's a visual called matrix in Power BI, and it also shows you the data in actually the cube form. Okay, although it's just a visual, but nonetheless, it's easier to understand what the cube form of data looks like if you look into that. Let it load. Yeah, just a second. Let me make it a bit bigger. Now, let me just delete this one. Maybe make it pretty much smaller. Is this table clearly visible to everyone?
Yes.
Now, here, let me just try to explain what it exactly is showing you. Okay. So here in the rows side, or this axis, if you're seeing this, it is giving you the information about the different genres of the movies. Okay. And if you have a look at this particular axis, or basically the columns, it is giving you the information about the categories of movies, whether the movies belong to 60s or 70s or 80s, 90s, millennium or new movies. Okay. Different categories are made. And these values which you are seeing, these are nothing but the revenue. Okay. So I hope you understand now what the cube form of data actually looks like. Is that clear?
More like
Yes.
a three-dimensional view of the data. Three
Exactly.
dimensions.
Three-dimensional. Three-dimensional form of data is called as the cubic form of data. Okay. Hope this is clear now.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the only difference between the direct query and live connection is that direct query is only difference is that in direct query, you bring the nominal data, whereas in live connection, you bring the cube form of data, and that you bring from the softwares or the tools like the Azure Analysis Services, or even the SQL Server reporting services or SQL Server analysis services. Okay, from those tools, you bring the cube form of data. Okay. And then ultimately, there's a final mode, that is the dual mode or composite mode or hybrid mode, wherein some of the tables you bring in import mode and some of the tables you bring by direct query mode. Okay, so that is this mode. Okay. Hope this thing is clear, people. The storage modes in Power BI.
Yes.
Okay. And yes, as
Yes.
far as the main differences between the import mode and direct query mode, we'll discuss that tomorrow in pretty much detail. Okay. So as far as today's class, is everything clear, or anybody has any doubts, people?
No, it's clear. Tomorrow there is a class. Tomorrow is Saturday.
No, tomorrow there won't be any class.
Yeah.
But yeah, after this class, I'll be sharing the class data files as well. Okay, and even this Power BI. Okay.
Sure.
So that and yeah, for you to bring the data from SQL or MySQL, you have to install those softwares in your systems. Okay, and one more thing, I will share one more video with you guys. Okay, by which you can actually create the work email. The thing is, if you want to sign into Power BI, your normal Gmail ID will not be sufficient. Okay, it will not accept your Gmail ID. You will need some ID like this. I hope this is visible here. It looks like some business email. Okay, so how to create a free business email and use it to log into Power BI, because it's not just about logging in here. It will be useful while logging into Power BI service as well. I know Power BI service is still far away, but I want you to go through that video and create one account for yourself. Okay, yeah. Before the try doing it before the next class, and yeah, that's
Sure.
it.
Sir?
Yeah, any more doubts, people?
Yes, sir. Can I ask?
Yes, please go ahead.
In direct connection, in direct query, I mean,
Huh?
we would building up direct connection. What does it mean that we would be running query in SQL and result would be shown here?
I'm not getting the exact question. Can you be more specific, please?
I'm asking that what is direct connection? What output would be shown here in
In direct query, you mean?
yes, sir.
So as I mean, I showed you, right? In direct query, the data is actually existing in SQL. All you have here is its connection with here. Okay. This is just a view. This is not exactly the table that is present within the Power BI. It's just a view that is present, view where the table is actually present in SQL. Is that clear?
So if we change something, it would directly reflect in the database?
No. Here, again, if you do some changes in here, that won't be reflected in SQL. But if you do some changes in SQL, even if you don't click on refresh, that will be impacted here. Is that clear?
Yes.
How about rest of the people? Still have any doubts?
The last thing you said, change in the SQL. We don't refresh also, it automatically reflects.
Exactly. If you do some changes in the backend, let's say in this case, the backend is SQL. Okay. If you do some changes in SQL, if you are working in direct query, it will be impacted here, even if you don't press the refresh button. Clear?
Okay.
Okay. Any more doubts, people? Fine, great. I'll stop sharing my screen, and yeah, let me first stop the recording.